Hi everyone, we're going to talk through the midterm and the 15% that we want to count for the midterm. I think everyone is doing this. I feel very sure that most of you, if not all, are already doing this, but just going to check a few things and make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page. So the first thing we want to look at is the difference in Canvas and PowerSchool, so you can see why this is more complicated with all of our grades going in Canvas and PowerSchool. So in Power Teacher Pro, Q3 and Q4 are completely separate categories. So we're having stuff go from Canvas. So everything in this category you can see goes to January through May. All of this is going to end up in two separate places in Power Teacher. So we need to look at Q3 because that's where our midterm is. Okay, so in order for these to sync, your category titles, so test and the category percent, has to match in order to go to Power Teacher. So that's why we can't do an extra midterm weight in Q3 in Canvas, because if we did, then it would throw off the percentages for each of your other categories, and they wouldn't align. And since they're all coming from one assignment group here in Canvas, we have to make sure those names and percentages match. So in order to see if your midterm is counting 15%, we are going to look at everything through March 13th. So I'm going to draw a line here, and I know that this is Q3 and this is Q4. All right, so 30% is my test weight. I want my midterm to be 15%. So in order for my midterm to be 15%, it has to be half of the total points in Q3. So if each of these were worth 100 points, they would each be worth 10%. So I have to make my midterm equal half of the points for my test category in order for it to equal 15%. All right, so if you go to my midterm, you're going to see that it is a power test, and as most of you guys know, power test grade it, and it's set up based on 100 points. Okay, but when I go to midterm, it says 200 points. Well, power tests don't automatically go into the speed grader. I have to manually go to power test and then enter my midterm grades into Canvas. So when I do that, I have to double the points. So for it to equal 200 points, if this student made a 75, I would double that and he would get 150 out of the 200 points for his midterm. And that would ensure that it is 15% of their grade. Okay, so I hope this makes sense, and you can see that you just have to figure out the total number of points that you have, and then what you need to do to make that equal your 15%. So if you have, say your tests are 45%, then your midterm needs to be 1/3 of the number of points. Or if your test category equals 50%, then it has to be 3/10 of that. And it just depends on the percentages. With math, it works out pretty easy because we have about 2 unit tests per 9 weeks. And then adding the midterm just means that's easy to figure. If you have questions and you're not really sure how to make that equal 15%, I'll be happy to try to look at yours with you and check to see if that's accurate. Mr. Collins said as long as we're between 10 and 15%, it should be as close to 15% as possible, but you don't want to have a midterm that equals 67.2 points just because it needs to be 15%. So, use some logic, reason in there, but we do want to follow the board policy as closely as we can. So I hope this is helpful. If you have questions, let me know.